Welcome students. Today we will study Science Chapter 4 Sorting Materials into Groups. Now in this chapter we will study about objects around us, sorting and classification of objects, importance of classification, material and its types, classification of objects on the basis of materials and properties of materials. Now students, first of all, look around yourself. Wherever you are, you can see many things like fan, door, chair, mobile, your books, pencil, pen, etc. These all are objects. So what is object? An object is anything that we can see or touch. Now, have you ever visited to a grocery store? If yes, then you have observed that in the store, pulses are placed in one section, spices are placed in another section. Same way, fruits and vegetables are placed in another section. And because of this, it becomes very easy to locate a particular item. So, when we put things into different groups or places according to their type, this is called sorting. In the process of sorting out things according to some criteria is called classification. Now, why we need to classify things or why classification is important? It is important because it helps in systematic study of objects. With the help of classification, we can identify and locate things easily. It also helps us to study the properties of objects. And with the help of classification, we can differentiate between members of two different groups. Now, let me take an example of pen. You all know that pen is an object, but the thing which is used to make it is either plastic or metal. So, plastic or metal is called material. So what is material? Material is a substance or a thing which is used in making different objects. Now you know materials are of two types: natural materials and man-made materials. So the materials which are obtained from nature are called natural materials. For example, you can take wood. And the materials which do not occur in nature but are made by humans in factories by combining two or more materials are called man-made materials. For example, you can take plastic. Now in the previous slide, we have studied about materials. But what these materials are made up of? These materials are made up of matter. Now what is matter? You have already studied that anything that occupies space and has mass is called matter. But students, have you ever thought what this matter made up of? This matter is made up of extremely small particles which we called atoms. Now further, these atoms made substances. And what are those substances? These substances are elements and compounds. So any substance which is made up of only one type of atom is called an element. For example, we can take hydrogen, we can take oxygen. Now in hydrogen, only one type of atom is present. Now, anything or any substance which is made up of two or more elements and they are in the fixed proportion, they are called compounds. Example you can take of water. Now, water is a combination of two elements, that is hydrogen and oxygen. And in this, we have two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. Now, let us study how we can classify objects on the basis of materials. You know, an object made of different materials. For example, we use a plate in our daily life. So, a plate may be made of different materials like plastic, glass, stainless steel, and paper. Same way, we can take example of clothes. Clothes may be made of cotton, silk, wool, nylon, and polyester. So, with this, we come to know that same object made of different materials. Now, let us see how different objects made of same material. For this, we can take example. Let me take leather. Leather is used to make shoes, belts, and bags. So, all these objects are made up of one material, that is leather. We can take another example also of wood. If you will observe in your home, many objects are made up of wood, like table, chair, doors, windows, many extras are there. So, all these objects are made up of same material. So, with one material, we can make many objects. Now you know objects can be made up of combination of materials. You can take example of biscuit. In this we use flour, sugar, milk and ghee. So biscuit is made up of all these combination of all these materials. Same way you can take example of tea. Tea is made by the combination of water, tea leaves, sugar and milk. So an object may be made up of combination of materials. Now students, you know, to make an object, we choose a material depending on its properties and the purpose for which the object is to be used. So now we will study about different properties of materials. First is appearance, second texture, third hardness, fourth state, fifth solubility, sixth floating and sinking, and seventh transparency. Now one by one we will study all the properties. So the first property which we will study is appearance. Appearance is basically how a material looks. Based on appearance, the materials are classified as shiny and non-shiny, or you can say lustrous and non-lustrous. For example, metals like gold, copper, silver, diamond, iron, aluminium, all are very shiny. Whereas if we will talk about wood and plastic, they are dull and non-shiny. So on the basis of appearance, we can able to group the material. Now the next property is texture. Now based on touch, different materials are classified into rough and smooth. So the materials which have bumps and ridges on their surface and are rough to touch are called rough materials. For example, bark of tree, rocks, wood, bricks, etc. Whereas the materials which have no bumps or ridges and have a plain surface are smooth to touch and are called smooth materials. For example, we can take glass sheet, we can take wax and petals of flowers. Now the next property is hardness. Now based on hardness of materials, the materials are classified as hard and soft. The materials that are difficult to compress, for example, iron, wood, stone, glass, etc., are classified as hard materials, whereas materials that can be compressed or stretched easily are known as soft materials. For example, cotton, sponge, rubber, etc. Now, the next property which we will study is state. You know, most of the materials are grouped on the basis of their physical state, that is, solid, liquid, and gas. And you all have studied the difference between solid, liquid, and gas in your previous class. So, on the basis of solid, liquid, and gas, materials are grouped. Now we will study about the solubility of material in water. So, substances that are completely disappear or dissolve in water are said to be soluble in water. For example, salt and sugar. Whereas the substances that do not mix with water and you can say do not disappear even after we stir for a long time are said to be insoluble. For example, you can take sand and oil. Now, students, here we have a list of few materials that are soluble and insoluble in water. You can see sugar, salt, lemon juice, vinegar, and oxygen. They are soluble in water, whereas sand, chalk powder, mustard oil, kerosene are insoluble in water. So, a soluble material will completely dissolve in water, whereas an insoluble material like oil will not dissolve in water and they form separate layer. Now if you observe in this list, some liquids like vinegar, lemon juice, they are soluble in water, and like mustard oil and kerosene, they are insoluble in water. So the liquids like lemon juice, vinegar, which get completely mixed with water, they are called miscible liquids. Whereas some liquids like mustard oil, kerosene, which do not mix with water and form separate layer, are called immiscible liquids. Now the next property which we need to study is whether a material will float or sink in water. Students, you must have observed that when you put a plastic bottle or a rubber ball or a paper boat in water, it generally floats. Whereas if you put sand, stone, coins, they will generally sink in the water. So the idea is the objects that are denser than water will sink, whereas the objects that are less denser than water will float in water. This means that the density of sand, stone, and coin is higher than the density of water, whereas the density of plastic ball, rubber ball, or paper boat is lesser than water. Now, the last property which we need to study is transparency. Based on transparency, the materials are divided into transparent, translucent, and opaque. Now, first we will study about transparent. Now, the materials through which things can be seen are called transparent materials. For example, you can take glass, water, even some plastic bottles. Next is translucent. So, the materials through which objects can be seen but not clearly are known as translucent materials. You can take examples of butter paper, tissue paper, frosted glass. Now, the last is opaque. Materials through which we are not able to see are called opaque materials. For example, wood, metals, cardboards, etc. Now, with this, we come to an end. I hope you are able to understand sorting of materials into groups.